Welcome back. There's always been a conflict between two-stroke and four-stroke motors, particularly in smaller sizes. Now, the large outboards, the V4s and the V6s and the V8s now, are really an anomaly as far as two-strokes are concerned. In all other power usages, motors of that size are made four-stroke. So outboards are unusual in that the manufacturers tend to stick to two-stroke, and they've really refined that design all the way down the line. Now, about 6 or 7 years ago, Yamaha introduced a 9.9 horsepower four-stroke to the market, and it was accepted by open arms, particularly by people who had small fishing boats that they wanted to drive at moderate speeds, and most particularly by people who had heavy boats that they wanted to drive, particularly houseboats. In fact, the houseboat operators accepted the Yamaha 9.9 with open arms, and houseboats up to 45 feet long are being quite happily driven by pairs of these little engines. Now, the problem is that 9.9 isn't quite enough horsepower to drive a big heavy houseboat with a lot of windage up around about that size. And recently Honda has been looking very seriously at the market from the point of view of bringing out a range of larger horsepower four-strokes. Now, Honda have been making four-stroke outboards for years and years and years and distributing them through their power systems and motorcycle and lawnmower outlets. Now they're looking at a much more aggressive push into the marine market by establishing marine retailers around the country to sell a new range of Honda four-strokes. Now, they come in 9.9, 15, which is this one, and there'll be some larger horsepowers coming along in 1989. That will be very interesting news. And we're going to have the first look at the 15 horsepower four-stroke Honda on the water. There are two basic models of Honda four-stroke on the market at the moment, the 9.9 and the 15, and if you read the specification sheet, you find that they read exactly the same all the way through. Capacity, bore stroke, dry weight, everything reads the same, which suggests that there's been probably a change in cam timing and a change in compression ratio in order to detune the 15 down to a 9.9. Now, it has a capacity of 280 cc's with a bore and stroke of 58 by 33 millimetres, which gives you a well over square engine, which of course reduces your piston speed. The horsepower comes at 6,200 revs per minute in the 15 and 5,500 in the 9.9. So that bears out the fact that the 9.9 is a detuned 15, which means obviously if you only require that much horsepower, it's going to last virtually forever. Both the engines, of course, are water-cooled. They have capacitor discharge ignition, and they both have an alternative electric start to the inbuilt recoil starter. Now, an indicator of the remarkably low fuel consumption of these outboards is the fact that they're provided with only a 13-litre fuel tank, and you'll find that even the 15 will take a lot longer than twice as long to use that 13-litre than a conventional two-stroke will take to use 25 litres. The fuel consumption is really quite remarkable. Dry weight ranges from 43 to 46 kilos depending on whether you have electric start or not. Now, if we take the cowl off the engine, it's quite obvious the way in which the engine is laid out. It's an overhead cam four-stroke, and the cam is driven by a toothed rubber belt direct from the crankshaft. Very simple and very easy. The inlet manifold inducts straight into the head from the carburetor. There's a short manifold running parallel with the bore inducting straight into the cylinder head. And obviously, of course, the exhaust goes down the leg and out through a propeller hub exhaust, which helps to increase the efficiency of the propeller and minimise noise. And speaking of propellers, we've been looking very closely at fitting a church ring propeller to this particular outboard and making some comparisons between the church ring and the conventional prop. It appears that the church ring will be ideal for this horsepower of motor, and particularly in the utilisation for which they're used in houseboats, etc., because of the increased efficiency in both forward and reverse of the church ring. Now, that'll give us the opportunity to put a spring balance on the boat and run it with a conventional and the church ring propeller and get some idea of how the comparison really stacks up. The motor's very quiet in operation, easy to operate, particularly with the gear lever being mounted right on the front of the bracket there. You don't have to reach down the side of the motor to operate the gear lever. It's simply a matter of flicking it up or down and you're in forward, neutral or reverse. Throttle is the conventional twist grip, similar to most comparable outboards. Once the engine cowl is on, the engine is very quiet, very easy to live with, even at full throttle in an aluminium boat. And as I mentioned earlier, its fuel consumption is absolutely miserly. Now, I predict a very bright future for the Hondas, particularly in this horsepower range and the larger horsepowers, to power the houseboats that are running all over Australia now on a hire basis. There's a great need for an easy and efficient and economical and easily handled power package for these houseboats. The need is not filled by two-strokes because they're not powerful enough. It's not filled by inboards because they're not accessible enough. They're difficult to maintain. And it appears that the Honda four-strokes are really going to come into their own in that particular usage. We'll be back right after this.